They say heroes wear capes. But on that cold Friday afternoon, he wore a janitor's jacket, steel toe boots, and a name tag no one ever bothered to read. While the school panicked, while fire alarms screamed and students ran for their lives, he ran in, straight into the smoke, straight into the flames. Not for glory, not for attention, but because 7 kids were trapped, and he couldn't stand to leave them behind. His name is Harold Boone. And for 19 years, nobody noticed him. But on that day, the whole world did. Before this story ends, you're going to see how a man the world treated like a shadow became the light that brought everyone out alive. Don't scroll past this one. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been underestimated, this story is yours. Subscribe to SoulTwist Stories, where quiet heroes get the spotlight they deserve. And stay with us, because what Mr. Boone did next, it will leave you speechless. His name was Mr. Harold Boone. And if you walked through the halls of Riverpoint High any time in the last 19 years, you probably passed him. Maybe even every day. But chances are, you didn't really see him. He was the man with the mop. The one who scraped gum off desks after lunch. The one who pushed that squeaky yellow cart down the hallway while the rest of the school talked over him. He was always there before the first bell rang. And he was the last to leave when the stadium lights finally shut off after a football game. He wore the same thing every day, a faded green jacket with his name stitched on the chest, khaki work pants, and a pair of old steel toe boots that clunked against the tile. To most people, Mr. Boone was just part of the background. The noise you tune out. The person you nod at, but never talk to. Never ask, "How are you?" Never really wonder, "What's his story?" Students made jokes about him. "Yo, Mr. Boone's got cobwebs on his brain. Bet he sleeps in the broom closet. Think he's got a mattress in the janitor's room?" The teachers, they were nicer, but still distant. Polite smiles, quick thank yous, but no real conversations. He wasn't invited to luncheons. He wasn't listed in the yearbooks. He was just there, always cleaning up after everyone, always watching, always silent. But what no one knew was this. Every hallway he swept, he knew who walked it with a heavy heart. Every locker he passed, he knew which ones slammed shut after a bad phone call. Every piece of trash he picked up reminded him of the dreams he once had and the ones he lost along the way. Mr. Harold Boone wasn't just a janitor. He was a mirror of everything the world throws away when it stops paying attention. And while everyone else passed him by like scenery, Harold saw everything. Every fight, every tear, every late-night teacher breaking down in their car, every kid pretending to be tougher than they felt. And even though no one asked him, even though he was invisible to most, he loved that school. He showed up for that school. Every single day. Because sometimes, the people we ignore the most are the ones who would run into a fire for us. Harold Boone didn't always plan to mop floors for a living. There was a time, decades ago, when his name was printed on a shiny ID badge from a top engineering firm. Back then, he wore button-down shirts, carried a leather briefcase, and built things the world called impressive. But life has a way of rerouting you without warning. He got married young. Her name was Denise, a Sunday school teacher with a laugh that made strangers turn around in restaurants. She believed in him, even when he stopped believing in himself. When her cancer came, it was swift, ruthless. She was gone before their 10th anniversary. After she passed, Harold didn't go back to the office. He couldn't. He quit his job, sold the house they bought together, and moved into a small mobile home at the edge of town. Most people thought he just disappeared. But one day, a job opened up at Riverpoint High. They needed a janitor. It didn't pay much, but it came with quiet hallways, steady work, and a place where he didn't have to explain why his eyes looked tired all the time. He took it. And for 19 years, he swept, mopped, and unclogged toilets for a school full of kids who never knew he once built things with his mind, before grief turned that mind into a fog. What no one knew was this. Harold gave half his paycheck every month to a fund that paid off student lunch debts. He fixed broken locks and squeaky doors on his own time, with tools he bought out of pocket. Sometimes, he left extra snacks in vending machines for the kids he saw pretending not to be hungry. He never bragged, never took credit, never even signed his name on the donations. To him, it wasn't charity, it was purpose. See, after Denise died, Harold didn't need applause. He just needed to matter somewhere. And he chose River Point High. Not because it paid well, not because it was easy, but because sometimes the only way to heal is to quietly love the world that forgot how to see you. It was a Friday, the kind where the air feels a little heavier, where even the sky looks like it's holding its breath. Morning rain had passed, leaving puddles on the sidewalk and steam rising off the parking lot. Inside River Point High, things felt normal. Fifth period was halfway through. Seniors were half asleep in English. Freshmen were pretending not to be nervous about next week's algebra test. And Harold Boone was wiping scuff marks off the gym hallway floors. Then, it happened. At first, it was just the alarm. That shrill, echoing screech every student had heard a dozen times during drills. Nobody panicked. Not yet. Teachers rolled their eyes. Students laughed and shuffled toward the doors like it was a joke. But within seconds, the smell hit them. Smoke. Real smoke. Thick. Acrid. Rolling out from beneath the East Wing Science hallway, the one with the old chemistry lab that had needed an upgrade for years. Panic moved fast. Feet stomped. Voices rose. Fire spread faster than anyone expected. Kids screamed. A student dropped her inhaler in the rush. One teacher fell on the stairs trying to help. People scrambled toward exits like fish fleeing a net. But Harold Boone, he didn't run. He didn't hesitate. As students poured out of the building, he moved against the crowd, toward the fire. Because as he passed the science hall, he heard it. A voice. Then two. Then more. We're stuck. Help. Please, somebody. Room 221. The back lab. The doorknob was jammed. Smoke was seeping under the door. And inside, 7 students and 1 substitute teacher were trapped. Harold didn't stop to think. Didn't wait for backup. Didn't check for cameras or applause. He pulled his key ring off his belt and dropped to the ground, crawling low into the thick haze. Eyes burning. Throat dry. Flames licking the walls just a few feet down the hall. He reached the door. It wouldn't open. Heat had warped the frame. The key turned, but the metal bent. So he did what he hadn't done in 20 years. He kicked with everything he had. Once. Twice. On the third try, the door cracked. He threw it open and shouted, "Stay low. Grab each other. We're getting out now." He took off his jacket, soaked it in the emergency sink, and wrapped it around the smallest girl in the group. Told her, "Breathe through this, baby. You stay behind me." Then he led them, one by one, down the hall, around the fire, through a maintenance door he knew most teachers didn't even realize existed. It was dark, hot, hard to breathe, but Harold Boone knew those halls like the back of his hand. He got them to the service tunnel, got them past the boiler room, got them to the back exit near the loading dock. And just as the last kid stepped into daylight, Harold collapsed. His lungs gave out. The smoke had soaked into him. He hit the pavement with one arm still shielding the student closest to him. And in that moment, everything stopped. The paramedics rushed in. Teachers screamed. Students cried. The janitor, the man nobody knew, the man everyone overlooked, had just saved 8 lives. The video hit Twitter before the paramedics even left the parking lot. It was shaky, shot on a student's phone. But the world didn't care about the camera quality. They cared about the moment it captured. A janitor, unconscious, with his arms still stretched protectively over the kids he just pulled from a burning school. Within an hour, it had 10,000 views. By nightfall, over 2 million. Hashtags started flooding timelines. Hashtag thank you Mr. Boone. Hashtag the janitor who saved us. Hashtag everyday hero. And as the sun went down that night, News vans pulled up outside Riverpoint High. Local reporters camped outside the hospital. CNN called. Then Good Morning America. Then Ellen. But while the world buzzed with praise, Harold lay in a hospital bed, breathing through a mask, with burns on his arms and soot still in his hair. He hadn't seen the headlines. He hadn't watched the clips. He didn't even know that students from every grade were outside the hospital holding handmade signs that read, "We love you, Mr. Boone. You saw us when no one else did. You're our hero." And for the first time in years, he was the most talked about person in the entire town. The school held an emergency assembly the next day, not to discuss fire drills or damages, but to talk about the man they had all ignored. The principal, usually stiff and unemotional, stood at the microphone with tears running down his face. "I've worked here for 13 years, he said, "and it took a fire for me to realize. I never once asked that man how he was doing." Student after student took the stage. Not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. One said, "He used to leave snacks outside my locker when I forgot lunch." Another said, "He helped me fix my bike chain after school and walked me home when it got dark." A teacher shared that Harold had once stayed late on a snowy night, just to make sure her car would start. It was like someone had removed a blindfold from the whole school. And they all realized, Harold Boone had never been just a janitor. He'd been the glue, the quiet presence, the steady soul, the silent protector of everyone in that building. And back in the hospital, when a nurse wheeled in a tablet so he could see the tribute live stream, Harold didn't speak. He just covered his face with his hands and cried, not because he was finally being seen, but because, deep down, he never thought anyone would notice. After the fire, something shifted at Riverpoint High. People didn't just want to thank Mr. Boone. They wanted to understand him. Who was this man who risked his life without a second thought? What else had they missed? That's when the stories started to surface. First, it was Ms. Daniels, the school counselor. She found an envelope tucked in her desk drawer, buried under files. No name on the outside, but inside was a note that read, "Use this for whoever can't afford prom tickets. Let them feel seen." Attached to it was a $200 bill, all in cash. That same handwriting matched the other envelopes that had appeared over the years. 4 field trip money, 4 gym uniforms, 4 overdue lunch accounts. Everyone had assumed it was from an anonymous donor. It was, just not the kind they expected. Then a student named Anthony shared something online that shook people to their core. "My dad left when I was 9. I used to sit alone by the gym after school, acting tough, but waiting for someone who was never coming. Mr. Boone never said anything. He just sat next to me. Every Tuesday, every Thursday, 4 months. He didn't need to talk. He just showed up. I never forgot that." His tweet went viral. And under it, hundreds more like it. "He taught me how to change a tire before my driver's test. He walked me to the office when I got bullied and stayed with me until my mom came. He let me cry in the hallway when my grandma died. Didn't ask questions. Just handed me tissues." And then came the big one. The district superintendent released an internal memo showing that Mr. Boone had donated over $14,000 to the school's anonymous hardship fund over the last decade. He'd never told a soul. Never asked for a tax write-off. Never wanted a plaque. He just gave. And he kept giving. Because to Harold, the job had never been about mopping floors. It was about cleaning up what the world left behind. For 19 years, Harold Boone was the quiet force keeping Riverpoint afloat. The man who saw cracks before they broke. The one who believed that if he could help even one kid, even once, then maybe everything he'd lost wasn't for nothing. He didn't need fame. He didn't need a crowd. He just needed to matter. And in the most unexpected way. He always had. The auditorium had never been that full. Not for prom. Not for the homecoming game. Not even for graduation. They called it a school spirit assembly. But everyone knew what it really was. It was Harold Boone Day. Students packed the bleachers, holding handmade signs and balloons. Teachers wore green jackets in his honor, just like the one he wore every day. Even the principal traded his tie for a mop handle he carried to the podium. The lights dimmed, a screen lowered from the ceiling, and a tribute video began to play. Soft piano music, clips of students holding up thank you notes, footage from the fire rescue, and one line that appeared in bold letters at the end. To the man we never really saw, until he saved us all. Then, the side door opened, and Harold entered. He looked smaller somehow, weaker, still healing. But when he stepped onto the stage, the crowd rose, not with polite applause, not with forced cheer. They stood like they were welcoming royalty, like they had been waiting their whole lives to say, "We see you now." Harold stood at the mic, quiet. He cleared his throat. "I don't know what to say," he began. "For a long time, I thought I was just background noise here. I showed up, did my job, went home, and I was okay with that. But this means more than you'll ever know." He paused, took a breath. "I didn't save those kids because I'm brave. I did it because that's what you do when you care about people, even if they don't always care back. I wasn't trying to be seen. I just didn't want to lose anyone else." The room was silent. A student stepped up, holding a small black box. Inside was a gold plaque. "To Mr. Harold Boone, for being more than a janitor, for being our quiet hero, for saving lives long before the fire." Then came the biggest surprise of all. The school librarian stepped forward and smiled. "We've decided to rename the library," she said. "From this day forward, it will be called the Harold Boone Learning Center, because you gave more than knowledge here. You gave care. You gave safety. You gave us all a reason to look again and see the people we overlook." And for the first time in his life, in front of hundreds of cheering students and faculty, Mr. Harold Boone cried, not from sadness, but from finally being seen. They say some people are born to shine, but Harold Boone, he was born to steady the light. Even when no one noticed, he was holding it up. For 19 years, he walked the same halls, unseen, uncelebrated, but never unimportant. He didn't save that school the day of the fire. He'd been saving it, piece by piece, moment by moment, every single day before that. When no one paid attention, when no one asked how he was, when no one even remembered his first name, Harold Boone chose to care anyway. Because kindness, real kindness, doesn't need applause. It shows up, it stays late, it remembers names, and it runs into burning buildings, not for the headlines, but for the hope. Most heroes don't wear capes. Some wear janitor jackets and carry keys. And while the world may never write their names in history books, they live on in the hearts they quietly save. So the next time you pass someone who fades into the background, the cafeteria lady, the bus driver, the man sweeping the floors, look again. Because behind that quiet face might be a story braver than any movie, a heart bigger than any stage, a soul that twists the course of lives, without ever needing the credit. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone in your life who deserved more love, more honor, more gratitude, don't just watch. Do something. Leave a comment sharing your own Harold, someone who showed up for you when no one else did. Subscribe to SoulTwist Stories, where the quietest people have the most powerful stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a tale that stirs your soul. Because here, every story matters. And the ones we forget, we're here to remember them.